My name is Larry Woods, and this is a reel of experience and opinion for wisdom. I don't like reading from notes, trying to read from notes. I will refer to each question I'm supposed to get into. Other than that, I'll try to talk to the camera and give an opinion as I recall things. So here goes. How does today, I guess, compare with other times in our recent history, or at least within my lifetime? I was too late for World War II. I was conceived a few months after it ended. But I know from all accounts that it was a united America that during the time we fought in that war. As time went on, the civil rights movement came in. I grew up in the South, so the racial divide there was acute, and I did grow up under a very segregated society at that time. I think there have been lots of improvements in the South. I think there's more unity, but at that time there was definitely racial division. Next question, what's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, and why does it matter? Well, I used to think I wanted to get all the knowledge in the world, but it wasn't very wise to think that because I couldn't retain it or even approach it. But my feeling on the difference is that knowledge is important to have. It's great to have a vast quantity, but it really doesn't do you any good without the wisdom to know how to use it, implement it, reject certain parts of it, whatever it takes. But wisdom is really the application of the knowledge that you attain, and do it in the best, smartest fashion. And it matters because we need to guide others, and especially our children, our grandchildren, and the younger generation. We need to guide them with Solomon's wisdom as opposed to just pumping knowledge of whatever type, sort into their heads and figuring they sell on their own after that. What 5 things have you discovered that are most important in life? Now, I didn't jot down 5, and I hope I can keep count here, but I'll come up with 5. And it starts with God. Second is family. Third is friends. Fourth is, I guess, acquaintances. Really doing the right thing for you with your fellow man, but especially friends, close friends, and associates. And beyond that, to definitely apply the golden rule of doing unto others as you would do unto yourself. And I do try to abide and live by that principle. Even somebody I don't like, I try to do the right thing and think the positive side. I look at the positive side of that person or those people. So that pretty much wraps. I think there were 5 there, and if there wasn't, I'll make up some more later. Do you have any advice on how to bounce back after hard times? Well, I've had some hard times, and it seems like close family ties sure help when it comes to bouncing back, because you can never bounce back quite as well if you have someone close to you, whether it be a wife or your children or whatever, just totally pulling in the opposite direction, telling you how wrong you are. But then again, you need objective opinions, so if you are wrong, it certainly doesn't hurt for them to point it out. But I think bouncing back is just putting either a united effort if it's family or within yourself, because most people who get knocked down, they get back up, and then if they get knocked down again, some will continue to lay there. Some will say, well, I think I'll get up, and others will jump right back up and say, I will find a better way to do that. So you just need to my way of thinking, you need to always look for the positive and look for the best way that you can come back after you've had a failure. Because if you try anything in life, you're going to fail. So you got to keep trying until you succeed at the thing that is most important to you to succeed at. What would you say, reminds me of a Beatles song, if I sang you a tune, what would you say are the major values of principles that you live by? Are the major values and principles? Again, I go back to do unto others as you would have them do unto you, because to me, I always hated the things I despised most in life was when I was treated totally different than somebody right next to me. And I know that anybody that's treated that way, and if it's a race thing, if it's a business thing, associate thing, you just don't like to be treated with favoritism, obvious favoritism to yourself or to someone else in your presence. So to me, it's just giving everybody a square deal and living by the principle of fair play. How was life during the Great Depression? Any words of wisdom on how to handle a recession? Well, I tell you what, I'd have to do remote viewing and time travel to get back to the Depression. My parents went through it. They had a hard time. My dad worked for 50 cents a day, but at least he had a job. It was under Roosevelt's CPA program, I think it was called, CCC program. I forgot anyway. It was a civilian work corps. But they survived. He had to work away during the week, and he would bring money home on the weekend, and had a little bit of farm, so they did grow some of their own food. But apparently life was tough, and probably in some urban areas it was even tougher because you couldn't grow some of your own food. So I didn't experience it. I can't say. I know I look old enough to have, but I did not. So just from my association with people who did go through it, it wasn't easy. As far as recession, we've been through a few in my lifetime. And I think I'll give the advice to anyone out there, same advice I've always given my sons, and that is you need to put money back just in case, as a cushion, because you're making good money now, you're spending all of it. If you put some back and then suddenly something comes up, whether it be medical or a travel thing you want to do on the spur of the moment, or like my son saying, my daughter's got a recital this weekend in Dallas and we need to go to it, but I don't have any money. And I say, son, if you'd have listened to me a year or two ago and put back $50 a week or $50 a month, whatever, there'd be a cushion fund there, a rainy day fund we might call it. But I went ahead and gave him the $150 because I knew that sooner or later he would take my advice. And I think that in the meantime he has. So anyway, my advice is on prepare and stay prepared always. Hopefully never another depression, but if there is, you'll be more ready for it if you've got money back. Recession, you're going to be better off keeping your mortgage up and car payments, whatever. You may have to trim things off that you don't really need. But if you put a rainy day fund back, you've got a shot at surviving through a recession if you happen to lose your job or get your hours cut back. So you need to be prepared. Tell us about World War II. Where were you during that time? How was life different? Well, after seeing the movie Private Ryan, I'm glad I didn't have to go through that combat. Those men and our fathers and grandfathers went through hell, and they did it for us. They did it for this country, for their families, and those things that I've mentioned being valuable to me, their families, their friends. They fought, they sacrificed, and very few of them ever really wanted any praise for it. That's sad. But it is also good because they deserve that title, Greatest Generation. I wasn't there. Like I mentioned a while ago, I was conceived after it was over. So I didn't even get shaken or shell-shocked by any of the bombs falling. Not that they were falling in America at that time. But I do believe that that sacrifice that our people, our American soldiers, and Canadian and other countries certainly sacrificed, European, but I think, and even Russian, they sacrificed a lot. But I think those sacrifices has made us the free people we are, and so many people around the world that are still free for since that time. Because I think if the other side won, I think we would not have any freedom, anything close to what we have today. Next question. Sorry I couldn't tell you more about World War II. What was it like when the Vietnam War ended? How did life change? Well, not too long before it ended, I was in the military at that time. I went to Vietnamese language school. I started being trained as an interrogator, and would have, a few month or two later, be shipped to Vietnam as an interrogator linguist. But they were cutting back on numbers they needed, so about half of our class got split, and I went to Fort Bragg Special Forces, and we were on call for the Middle East, not Vietnam, because the Green Berets had pretty much been phased out of Vietnam at that time. So to me, I mean, I saw the protest, and we knew we weren't the most popular guys. I never had personally going to local businesses downtown in towns close to the base. I don't remember ever being protested or spit on, but a lot of my fellow soldiers were, and that's sad because they were there for the same reason the World War II guys were there. I say that a lot maybe weren't, and I was a draftee, but I wasn't a protesting draftee. I accepted it as my duty to the country, but the Vietnam War had the distinction of probably being the only war that the troops came home to a totally hostile society. The way the anti-war things had gone, a lot of them were in Vietnam fighting and surviving while all that was being done here. So my sadness is not that I was a victim of it, even though I was serving at the time, but my regret is that our troops overall were treated so shabbily by the public they were serving. So anyway, the war ended through years of protest, of course, and political change. It ended not in a graceful way, because we pretty much left town in a rout, and that's sad, but it's better, I think, than if we'd have stayed. So those were political decisions. The war was really a big business operation, I think, as it turns out. And I wasn't anti-war, but I'm not totally pro-war either, because I see a lot of graft and corruption that took place during that time. But as far as my fellow soldiers, as far as I'm concerned, those people that didn't go to Canada, didn't try to get out, those were heroes as much as World War II, in that they did do the duty that the country called on them to do. I got kind of lengthy with that, and I apologize. How did life change? I think it took a while to settle. We certainly weren't a united nation at that time, but I think as the time went on, I think some of the wounds healed. But I'd still say that's still a Vietnam divide in this country to a great extent, going from my educational institutions over to the working people, the working class, or anything but the educational end. I think there's an intellectual divide there still. The Cuban Missile Crisis, where were you? How did life change for you here? Now, again, I may be making this thing about 2 hours too long, but the missile crisis happened, of course, during the Kennedy administration. I guess it was 1962. I was 14 or 15, and I lived in Mississippi. I lived 90 miles from Memphis. Now, Memphis had a naval base there. It's still there, Millington Naval Base on the Mississippi River. I remember before this all happened, or maybe during it, when the news was big. Of course, we only had 3 networks to hear news from, and they were all pretty much on the same page as far as the war and political things. But I remember overhearing, and I don't think my parents meant it as a scare tactic for us. They just happened to be exchanging ideas, and they would say something to the effect of, if there is a nuclear war, Russia will probably hit Millington, because it was an important base at the time. And that, I knew where Millington was. I knew it was close to Memphis, and I knew Memphis was close to where I lived. So that put a little fear in me. And as the crisis grew, and it looked like we were definitely going to start exchanging missiles and shooting a hot war, I would look north on a regular basis toward Memphis. And I was expecting any time to see a mushroom cloud. And it was strange. I mean, in a way, it was a fear. I didn't just shake in my boots, but it was something I really thought was going to happen. So when I was outside, and we lived out in the country, I'd be on the hill there by the barn, and I'd look up toward Memphis and just wonder when the mushroom cloud was going to. So the whole country took took it seriously, and fallout shelters became a real popular thing. And it was promoted even more than rest of during the earlier part of the Cold War. So anyway, that was my feelings. Kennedy, I think that he maybe his military leaders voted against him there. I know they pulled the air support, which meant that it wasn't going to be a successful invasion. So I don't know. I don't know politically what should have happened there, one way or the other. But at least the real disaster in my fear of the mushroom cloud didn't come to fruition, and I am very glad about that. The life change after that, I think, because people saw just how close we came to a nuclear war, which would have probably been even back then almost total annihilation. So I think it made both sides, both the Russians, the Americans, and so many other parts of the world, whether they had nuclear weaponry or not, I think made them more cautious and more apt to get into some type of non-proliferation treaty where at least a hot war wouldn't come that close again. So that's my opinion on the Cuban situation. That pretty much wraps it up. And let's see, how did life change for you here? All right, that was pretty much it. I had some of my fears also diminished because of it's settling in a peaceful way. So again, my name is Larry Woods. I hope this hasn't been too lengthy, but I appreciate your time, and I will forward this to Amelia. Thank you.